All right, folks, we have about 5 minutes till we begin. If we can start making our ways to either chairs or an area to stand. They need some. If you give me a. All right, I think we are ready to begin. Welcome and thank you all for being here to honor Ron with the Memorial Highway sign dedication. If you haven't already, if you would please silence your cell phones. And if I can have you to please stand as the Ventura County Sheriff's Honor Guard presents the color and the Pledge of Allegiance. Right hands over your heart.
Face. Uniform personnel. Present.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Uniform personnel. Order. Armed. Face. Forward. March. Left. 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 Right. Left.
Please be seated. And again, good morning. I'm Captain Eric Hatley with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office. Again, thank you for being here to honor Ron on this occasion with the highway signs. And at this time, I would like to bring up our sheriff, Sheriff Bill Ayub.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. It's really a treat to look out and see so many friends and colleagues and elected officials, dignitaries from other law enforcement agencies and law enforcement professionals that have come together to share in this day with us. We all share a common bond that was cemented a year ago tomorrow in this community, and I know it's one that will last for many years to come. This was quite a process to get to this day. The sign dedication process is a little onerous, and it was something that we knew we wanted to do. We felt it was one of the least things we could do in light of the circumstances, and we began work on it almost immediately after the borderline tragedy occurred. And we wouldn't be here today if it were not for Assemblywoman Jackie Irwin and her office staff that authored Assembly Concurrent Resolution 17. This is a process that goes through the legislature and paves the way for the dedication of a section of the freeway and the creation of the signs for this purpose. And for that, we're very thankful. This is a 3.424 mile portion of State Highway Route 101 between Hampshire Road and Lynn Road. And from this day forward, it will be known as the Sergeant Ronald Ron Lee Helus Memorial Highway. Public funding for this activity is not allowed, and the expenses related to the fabrication and installation of the signs were shared by the Ventura County Sheriff's Foundation, the Thousand Oaks Police Charitable Foundation, and the Ventura County Deputy Sheriff's Association. We're very thankful for their help in making this a reality today. And finally, I'd like to thank the City of Thousand Oaks for their support of this event today, this wonderful venue, the printed materials, the refreshments. Both the City of Thousand Oaks and the County of Ventura have been incredibly supportive in this process from beginning to this day, and I'm appreciative for that. And this kind of collaborative effort perfectly represents the support and sense of community that has surfaced throughout the Conejo Valley in the wake of the borderline tragedy. And for that, I'm very thankful. So to tell you a little bit about Ron Helus, since his career beginnings in 1989, Ron was always actively engaged in the job. Throughout his career, he took the job seriously, looking for and taking on increasing challenges as his career progressed. Over the years, Ron worked in the pretrial detention facility at the East Valley Jail. He patrolled the streets of Thousand Oaks through many different assignments, and he worked as an investigator in Moore Park and the county-wide narcotics task force. Ron trained throughout his career as a member of the SWAT team, a firearms instructor, a defensive tactics instructor. He was a martial artist. When Ron promoted to sergeant in August of 2007, he hit his professional stride, really took ownership of sharing his skills with the younger, less experienced deputies he supervised. He loved teaching them about proper tactics, and his briefings were always woven with words of encouragement and the information they needed to be successful on the streets. And that was shared by somebody who had 29 years of police work. And by all accounts, Ron was an excellent police sergeant. Ron was an equally excellent husband and father. He loved his family dearly, as everyone acquainted with him knew. On his last evening with us, 1 year ago tomorrow, Ron answered the call we all hoped would never come. He raced to the scene of intense violence at the Borderline Bar and Grill, and without hesitation, he went in to confront evil. And we all know that evil gained the upper hand on Ron that evening. We also know that Ron's selfless, swift, and decisive actions saved lives by effectively stopping the violence. When I think of Ron's actions that evening, these words spoken by Winston Churchill during World War II repeatedly come to my mind. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. It was a different time and different circumstances, but I'm certain Ron was the kind of man Winston Churchill thought of when he spoke those words. Ron set a fine example as a deputy sheriff, a husband, a father, and a friend. And in his final deed, he represented the very best of us, for which we all owe him a debt of gratitude. I'm honored to be here with you today to share in the dedication of the Sergeant Ron Lee Helus Memorial Highway.
Thank you, Sheriff. And next, I'd like to bring up the Mayor of the City of Thousand Oaks, Rob McCoy, for some comments from the city.
Thank you. In 2010, my 11-year-old son, Daniel, and I were driving, and I was trying to regale to him things that my father had shared with me as a Navy captain, having grown up in Coronado, being surrounded by heroes. And at 11, he couldn't quite comprehend it, and I tried to get him to sit down to watch a series called Pacific of the men and women who fought in the Pacific Theater of War in World War II. But at 11, he was a bit bored with it. There was one character in the series whose name was John Basilone, who received the Medal of Honor and then went back and was killed in action when he could have remained in the States. My son was somewhat touched by it, but it wasn't until 2012, after a road had been dedicated to John Basilone near Camp Pendleton, and as my son and I drove by that sign, he said, "Dad, that's John Basilone that we saw in the series." At 13 years of age, he was now becoming more of a man than he was a boy, and together we revisited the story of this hero. I reflected on that because the time will come when a father will be driving with his son or his daughters and will come across the sign of your husband. They'll revisit what an amazing man he was and what he did for this community. When Sergeant Helus and the CHP arrived, the gunmen stopped killing the civilians. He knew his time was up. Sheriff Ayub, when you had shared that evil was visited on us that day, I look at all the officers present. Sergeant Helus and I share the same faith. I'm a minister by trade, but so is Sergeant Helus. In accordance with Romans 13, he's a minister of justice to execute wrath on those who would do evil. He protected our community, as did all of those that are the first responders. We're here as a city to be honoring Sergeant Helus's memory, but in addition, we're here to say thank you to all of you who protect that line and the citizenry of this community. This is still the safest city in America because we're surrounded by men and women like all of you. We're grateful, and I can't think of a greater tribute than to honor your husband. I know the why and what he did. Greater love has no man than this, to lay down his life for a friend. All of you do that for us. And as the mayor of the city of Thousand Oaks, I want to say thank you. And to the families of the victims, you're here today to honor this man. You suffered loss, but you also understand that his sacrifice stopped others from feeling the deepness of the pain you now have. And I want to say thank you for honoring him as well. May God comfort you in this time as we come upon this day that none of us ever wanted, but we will find healing. God bless you all. God bless your family. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Mayor. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Assembly Member Jackie Irwin, who helped lead the legislation for the memorial signs. Jackie.
Good morning. It's almost a year to the day that we lost Sergeant Helus. I am humbled to be here to honor his memory in this special way. Every day, as we work or play or go to school, and every night as we sleep, there are men and women in uniform who are out on the streets protecting our families and keeping our community safe. Most of us don't know the potential risks that they take on every single day, but as a community, we are grateful. Sergeant Ron Helus served with the Ventura County Sheriff's Department for 29 years and dedicated his life to protecting our community. The shooting at Borderline on November 7th, 2018 was senseless, unimaginable, and until then, something that we thought could only happen somewhere else, not at a place that our young people have gathered for years, a place that should have been safe. Sergeant Helus bravely ran into danger, and his actions saved countless lives. As a community, we mourned together over the last year, attended memorials, became familiar with the victims and the families' stories, and shared many tears together. Through this tragedy, the community has come together with the Sheriff's Department to embrace Ron's family. Ron made the ultimate sacrifice, and we all owe it to his family to let them know how deeply grateful we are, not just for his valiant work on that night, but for every day that he worked to protect our families. In California, a portion of highway can be named after someone who has provided extraordinary public service. and has strong ties to the community. We were honored to work with Karen and the Sheriff's Department, City of Thousand Oaks, and Caltrans to name a portion of the freeway that passes by Borderline as the Sergeant Ronald Lee Helus Memorial Highway. The Borderline building was where Ron proposed to his beloved wife Karen and where he bravely fought for the community he served. Every day when we drive by this memorial sign, we will be reminded of Sergeant Ron Helus's bravery and of the men and women of the Ventura County Sheriff's Department and other law enforcement agencies who are willing to risk their lives every day to our community. Our hearts will forever hold the scar that night left all of us to bear. While we feel indescribable sadness, we have risen above this attempt to make us feel fearful. Instead, offering love and support to one another and choosing to honor the memory of Sergeant Helus and the many other cherished souls that we lost that night. We have drawn strength from those who bravely responded. Their great courage, their selfless service, and their sacrifice sustains us and gives us hope. Sergeant Helus's life reflected a long history of going beyond for the people around him. This sign reminds us each to take a moment every day to remember Ron, a true hero.
Thank you, Assemblymember. At this time, I'd like to bring Sheriff Ayu back up and to introduce Karen, who would like to say a few words.
Ladies and gentlemen, Karen and Jordan Helus.
I just wanted to say thank you to Jackie, because I know how much love went into this. I know how much hard work went into this. And it just makes his life and his legacy keep going. And it means so much to our family. Thank you.
Yeah? Shall we unveil the sign?
Sure.
Okay.
At this time, we'd like to direct your attention over to the monitors. I know it'll be hard for people in the back to see. Although we have a sign here at the location, it would have been difficult to have this gathering out on the 101 freeway. But we do have the sign as it sits on the 101 freeway to unveil. Please direct your attention to the monitors. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. This concludes our ceremony. If I may ask you to stay seated or standing as the Helus family exits, they are going to go drive by the sign and see it in person. Thank you all once again. As you do exit, there are memorial cards on the tables out in front, and there are refreshments to the rear. Thank you once again.